And welcome to another NJThrives small business webinar. Just to make sure everyone can see me and hear me, would love for you to put a number 1 into the chat. Awesome, thank you, Gary. Oh, hey, how you doing, Gary? Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Tammy. Awesome, awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Let's jump right into it. There's a lot to talk about. Again, for those of you who don't know, my name is Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC Specialty Consultant and CEO at NilmoMedia.com. We are America's New Jersey Small Business Development Centers Network. It's a mouthful, but you can shorten it just by saying NJSBDC. We're a statewide program. We're powered by the SBA and partners and help small businesses with 3 things: no-cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources. So for our agenda, we go over some headlines, we jump into the webinar, then towards the end, there's a Q&A session. So let's jump right into the headlines. Now, 1, here is America's Seed Fund Week. And basically, it's going to be a series of events, and what they are trying to do is provide attendees with opportunity to hear from federal agency program managers. And this is going to be mostly to talk about small business innovation research, small business technology transfer programs. And so if you have a business that is in a tech company in its early stages, this probably makes the most sense for you. Next one here is 30 New Jersey nonprofits are to receive $17.5 million in grants through a new phase of NJDA programs, which are going to support restaurants and families in need. So this is phase 3 of the Sustain and Serve New Jersey program. And basically what this program does, it provides grants to support purchase of meals. There we go. Purchase of meals from New Jersey restaurants that have been negatively affected by COVID-19 and the distribution of those meals at no cost to the recipients. Next item here, which I think is super interesting, and it's NASA. So this is their Office of Small Business Programs, and they have a series of webinars with training that's relevant to small businesses. And according to this one, what I'm seeing here, it's how you can partner with NASA. So if that seems interesting to you, if you think you actually never know how your business might be able to help NASA. So whether you're in the tech space or not, or space and aeronautics, it does not matter what industry you're in. We know at least that federal contracts, they need paper and printing. So NASA, I'm going to assume, needs a lot of things as well. So I'd encourage everyone to see how you guys can potentially partner with NASA. And last one here is just a resource, and it is the online tax calendar. So before we get to the next tax season, it's important to make sure you actually pay your taxes. And the IRS has a tool here that's going to be able to set up calendar reminders for when you need to pay your taxes. I'm sure my accountant would be very happy that I'm saying this and promoting this. All right, so that is all the news that we have. There's not much any new. There are existing grants and existing loans out there for small businesses. I know that that's what most of you are looking for. but nothing new. For the existing ones, I would suggest to go to njeda.com, or you can talk to an NJSBDC business consultant, and we can, of course, help you not only find a loan or grant, but also help you apply for it, get the right documents together, review your documents, make sure they're good, and you have the highest rate for approval. We can't guarantee it, but at least we can get you close. So now, before we jump into the webinar, a few things to keep in mind. Please type your questions into the Q&A box. And number 2 is complete a 3-minute survey. So once this webinar closes out, you're going to get access to a 3-minute survey. And once you complete the survey, you'll get access to the slides of this presentation and the speaker, and also the recording of this webinar. So that being said, I'd like to welcome Tim Peter for another week, wonderful week, talking about marketing. It's going to be selling to and connecting with customers online. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing really well, Christian. I want to find out how I can partner with NASA. I'm not going to lie. This is
I know, right? That was pretty interesting.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. That and my tax calendar. Those are the 2 things that I'm most excited about today. So,
awesome.
Very cool.
The
so
show
I'm going to go ahead.
Yours.
Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think you all should be able to see my slides now. Welcome, everybody. I think we have some cool stuff to talk about today. So let's dive right in. You've probably noticed, but over the last couple of years, we have lived through a generational shift to digital. This is the amount of money that has been spent across all e-commerce platforms over the last several years, and where it's projected to go by insider intelligence, by eMarketer, between now and 2024. And we're currently projecting that we're going to be about $500 billion, that's $500 billion of revenue sold through e-commerce platforms by businesses just like yours this year alone. That's going to increase by 22.5% next year and by 23.3% next year, and the year following in 2024. Now, I will be honest, I think some of these projections are a little aggressive. We've been trending over the last couple of years between 17 and 20%. And when we're talking about $500 billion growth, you know, assuming that the growth rate is going to keep going up may not be accurate. But if we grow $500 billion at only 20%, that would still be an enormous number. I don't know about you, but if my business were to grow 20% year on year, especially if that business were $500 billion, I'd be pretty happy. I imagine you would be too. So the question that comes from this is, if this is what is happening, if this is what our customers are doing, if they are embracing digital in such a huge way in their lives, the question is, you know, how do you get yours? Where do you get your piece of this pie? The pie is growing. So how do we make sure you get yours? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you use tools like Google Merchant Center to connect your e-commerce store directly to customers and get your piece of this very, very large and increasingly growing pie. Now, there are a couple of assumptions for today's webinar. I want to say that right up front. And the first of these is it mostly assumes you're selling to consumers. Now, what I mean by this is that you're selling to people on the street, your typical customer, not normally a business. It doesn't mean you can't sell to businesses. It just means that we're primarily assuming that this is going to be a regular person and the like. However, everything we are going to talk about is still important regardless of how you sell to businesses. There's just one small caveat that I will talk about when we get there, okay? And that is how people access your website, all right? But otherwise, do be aware we're talking about people coming to your website and wanting to buy, or buying directly through Google Business Center, Google Merchant Center rather, to buy your products from them. Okay? So one of the things we're trying to do, if we all want to get a slice of this pie, we need to think in terms of a very simple framework. And it's a framework I call the Big Drive, because it's really built around driving three things. First, we want to drive visitors to our web presence. Now note, I didn't say website, I said web presence. And I'm going to talk about what that means. We want to drive conversion actions from those visits. And then we want to drive increased frequency or volume to improve our customer lifetime value. We want to bring more people to us more often so that we grow our revenue for our business. Now, I started by saying our web presence. What do I mean by our web presence? Well, I don't just mean our website. I mean all of the places that people can interact with our business on the web. And there's a lot of different ways they can do that. In fact, we think of it in terms of what we call the hub and spoke model. So the hub is your website. It's your email list. It's the two things that you control directly. They're yours. And all around these are various spokes. We've got Google, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we got LinkedIn, we got Twitter, we got YouTube. We have third-party sites that we sell through, like a DoorDash or an Instacart. And of course, we have whatever comes down the road in the future. By the way, one thing I could add in the center at the hub is an app. If you have a branded app that you make yourself, that would go here as well. But the idea is that we create content and we push it out onto the various spokes of the wheel, and the wheel drives traffic and revenue back to the hub, connects customers directly with us. So your website and your email list are the hub, but we're also going to talk about some spokes today. And the spoke we're going to talk about most of all is Google Merchant Center. So you're selling products and you want those products to appear in Google. You want them to be in Google shopping ads. You want them to be a variety of different places on Google. You want people to be able to buy from you. We got to get them on these spokes. Okay. The key that I want you to keep in mind, keep this in the back of your mind for the entire time we talk today, is that we want customers to shop. Right now, I realize as you're looking at this, you're going, wait a second, that doesn't look like the way I typically see shop spelled. But I want you to remember this idea. This is always about how we get customers to shop. And I'm going to explain what this means in just a couple minutes. Before I do that, I want to drill down a little bit on the Big Drive, just a little bit more. Now, if you've seen any of the other presentations we've done as part of this webinar series, you have seen this before, but don't worry, we're going to lead to some new stuff in just a moment. I just want to recap this for people who either haven't seen this before or as a refresher for those of you who have. And then we start the idea of the Big Drive with our digital revenue formula. We've got visitors to our web presence. We multiply that by our conversion rate. We multiply that by our customer lifetime value, and that is our revenue. That's the money we bring in, right? That's the part we care about at the start. The thing that we want to do is we want to see what it looks like in practice. So if we have 1,000 visitors to our web presence and 5% of them convert, they buy something from us, and all the conversions that they do with us over time are about $100, then we're going to make about $5,000. Now, for some of your businesses, you might want to multiply these numbers by 10. For some of you, you might want to multiply these numbers by 100. For some of you, you might want to multiply these numbers by 1,000. That's okay. That's completely okay. Just be aware the math holds the same, right? I just show it this way because it makes the math pretty easy to get our heads around. So 1,000 visitors, 5% conversion rate, $100 lifetime value, that's a $5,000 revenue we're going to see. Okay. The way that we actually improve this is, well, first we can drive more traffic. We can increase the number of visitors we get. So if we go from 1,000 to 2,000, keep everything else the same, you're going to end up with $10,000 in terms of top line revenue. Or We can keep visitors and customer lifetime value the same, but increase our conversion rate to 10%. We're still going to get $10,000 in top line revenue. Or keep visitors and conversion rate the same, but increase our customer lifetime value. We're going to get to $10,000 that way. And of course, what we try to do in practice is we try to increase all of these. We try to make sure that these become what I think of as a force multiplier, where each one adds to the one below it to increase our revenues dramatically. That's what we're trying to accomplish. That's what we care about here. That's what I mean by the big drive. Drive visitors, drive conversion rate, drive customer lifetime value, and that will drive revenues for your business and ultimately your success. Which is great in theory, but you're probably going, fantastic. How? How do I do this? Well, let's start by the fact that visitors can go to any part of our hub and spoke. So we want to make sure we're thinking about how do we do the right thing for each portion of the hub and spoke so that they get the experience that they care about, so that they actually want to work with us, so that they actually feel like this is a business that I should be involved with. Now, Jeff Bezos, the former CEO of Amazon and current space cowboy, asked a really interesting question once upon a time. He was once asked, he said, people say to me all the time, what's going to change in the next 10 years? And he said, I don't think that that's a very interesting question. He said, what I really want to care about is what won't change. What are the things that I can guarantee will be true over the next 10 years? And he said he has found for his business that customers always want a broad selection of products. They always want low prices for those products. And they always want fast shipping. They want to get their hands on the things they want as quickly as they possibly can. In fact, he said, I cannot imagine a time where people will ever say to me, you know what, I want fewer options. I want them to cost a lot of money, and I want them to take a really long time to get to me. Can you imagine a customer ever saying that? Of course not. That's something that doesn't change. Now, I would challenge Jeff Bezos a little bit on this, and you do too in your business, because you might not always have the broadest selection. You might not always have the lowest prices. You might not always have the fastest shipping, and that's okay. What it means, though, is that you need to make sure you focus on other things that don't change for customers, the things that they care about more than just that. And I say you might not have the broadest selection. Let's say you make only one product. Let's say you're a bridal shop and you just sell wedding dresses. You might have a broad selection of wedding dresses, but you don't have everything else people could be looking for, and that's okay. You just need to make sure you have the wedding dresses people want. You want to make sure that they get a good value for them. You want to make sure that they can get their questions answered. What we're looking to do is build a relationship with our customers so that they feel comfortable coming to us and shopping with us. Because remember, it all comes back to shop. Okay? So we want to think about the customer relationship in a different way. If this is how you think about your customer relationships right now, of, hey, what kind of relationship can we have at this immediate moment? That's not going to work. This isn't just about the transaction. This is about connecting with our customers on a deeper level. It's about making sure we're addressing their concerns, that we're making them feel like they're being taken care of. We want to make sure that customers know that you're somebody they can trust, right? Customers fundamentally only have a couple of questions that matter. The first is they want to say, am I going to be satisfied when using your product or service? And the other thing they're going to ask is, why should I buy from you? If you look like this guy, if you look like a used car salesman, you've really got a problem that we need to think about. How are we making it something that our customers trust us? Look at this little boy right here. Look at what he's doing. He is making a leap of faith. He's saying, I trust that dad's going to catch me. This is what you have to do with your customers at all times. You've got to bring it back to trust again and again and again. Jeff Bezos said we need to think about what won't change. I guarantee you, people will never buy from someone they don't trust. And so everything we're going to talk about for the rest of our time today is going to be about how you build that trust and the things you need to do to make sure that that trust is in place. We live in a world now of what we think of as permission marketing. If you think about it, digital rewards pull over push. What I mean by that is the customer gives you permission, or they ask for things. They initiate a search. They download an app. They opt into email. They follow you on social. They're not waiting for you to push a commercial in front of them or push an advertisement in front of them in a magazine or in a show that they're watching, or on a radio program that they're listening to, or on a podcast they're listening to. They want to say, I want to come to you when I'm ready. I want to ask. I want to pull when I'm ready, not push when I'm not. And increasingly, those behaviors are regulated. In Europe, you have something called the GDPR. And if you sell to customers in Europe, you are actually bound by GDPR, the General Data Privacy Regulations. We have the California Privacy Regulations Act. If you're a business with more than $5 million in revenue per year and you sell to customers in California, you are covered by this. If you sell to customers in Canada, you are covered by the Canadian Digital Privacy Act. No matter where we are in the US, if you send emails and things like that, you're covered by the CAN-SPAM Act. These are all things that require us to say, customers, we have to treat our customers' data in a certain way. We have to prove that we're trustworthy. And these laws all exist because some marketers and some businesses have done some fairly shady stuff over the last bunch of years. So much so that the regulators have said, whoa, hold on. We need the customer to give permission for you to do certain things, you, the business, to do certain things. So we need to remember that we should be doing this because it's the right thing to do and it's going to benefit our businesses, but we also should do this because it's the law. So in either case, that's a sure sign that this is something that is critical for your business. Now, one way we demonstrate trust, one way we do this, and if you were with us last week, you saw this, was we talked about 4 keys to a successful small business website. You have to have helpful content, right? People need answers to the questions that you have, or that they have, rather. You have to have clear pictures. I'm not going to buy something that I'm looking at and I can't make it out because it's fuzzy and it's small, right? That's not something that inspires confidence or inspires trust. You've got to have a clear call to action. You've got to make it very clear. Here's how you buy. Here's how you add it to the cart. Here's how you get it shipped to you. Very clear. And of course, you got to make it fast because your customers are busy people. They've got other things to do with their day. They don't want this to take a lot of time. So those are all things that you have to do to inspire trust. And they're really, really important. But of course, you also want to show up here. When somebody searches for electric guitars or classic Air Jordans or wedding dresses, we can see, hey, here's Google Shopping. And here's these things where people can buy right here. How do we get there? And that's what we're going to talk about now. That's where we're going to focus for the next little bit, is how you show up in Google Shopping. And trust plays an incredibly important role. Now, to start, you've got to sign up for something called Google Merchant Center. By the way, this all assumes you're selling physical products that either the customer can pick up or can be shipped to them. So if you have services, The services are a separate thing entirely. This is, we're actually going to send something to our customer, okay? But you sign up at Google Merchant Center. Here's the link. When you fill out the survey at the end, you're going to get the slides, and there will be a link in the slides to Google Merchant Center. Or, of course, you can just search for Google Merchant Center. This might shock you, but if you do a search on Google for something that Google makes, it's amazing how often their thing shows up number one. I know, it's crazy. It's almost like they own the search engine or something. Right? That's something you can do, though, to find Google Merchant Center. And there's some things that it does require right out of the gate. Some real simple stuff. First, you have to have a Google account. They want to know who you are. The next is you have to verify your contact information and your website. They want to make sure you're signing up a website and a business that you are actually in a position to control. They don't want, scammers or spammers or people like that going out there and saying, oh, sure, I'm responsible for this business. They want to know who they're talking to. You create a Google My Business profile. If you were at our webinar a couple of weeks ago, we did a whole section on how you can sign up for Google Business profiles. If you have not seen that webinar, they are in the library, so you can go back and watch them. They were recorded, so that's there. You need to share your full product data, and you need to integrate with your e-commerce platform, and I'm going to show you some things about how to do that as we go forward today, okay? So right out of the gate, they're saying, we need to trust you. We need to know who you are. We need to verify that you're who you say you are. We need to know your physical location. We need information about your products. We want to be able to show clear information to customers. And these are the first steps to Google trusting you. Because if Google doesn't trust you, your customers probably aren't ready to either. But of course, I started by saying we want to make sure we build trust because we want our customers to shop. So what is shop? Well, shop is the set of rules you want to keep in mind to make sure your business actually inspires trust for your customers. We're going to talk about. So what does shop mean? Well, shop means first that it is simple for your customer. Things that are not simple don't inspire trust. If it's really complicated, if it's really hard to do, they're going to run into problems and they're going to say, I don't trust these folks, and they're not going to buy. The next thing that you have to do is you have to be honest. Now, I realize that seems really ridiculous to say, but you'd be amazed how many people struggle with this and how many people do things, not because they're dishonest, but because they're not thinking about the fact that what they're doing does not appear honest, right? And I'm going to give you some examples of what this looks like in practice. And of course, the customer has to be protected. Things have to be secure. We have to make sure we're protecting customer data and taking care of that customer in every step of the way. So think simple, think honest, think protected, and that will help people shop. Okay, so let's talk about what some of these things are. The first is you have to have a secure open access website. What I mean by that is you can't require a password for people to buy from you. So notice right here, I've done a search for wedding dresses. I see this wedding dress, I click over and I come right over to the exact dress that I was looking at, which of course that's what the product feed does. But the idea here is I didn't have to give a password. I, the customer, didn't have to give a password. I didn't have to log into anything. You're making sure that all of the information is open and accessible to everybody. Now, this is the one place where if you're B2B, if you sell to businesses, this can cause an issue for you, right? You're not eligible for this if you password protect information, which many business-to-business sellers do. We're selling parts for a machine that we make, for instance. And so we say, before we're going to let you buy this, you have to sign up. It's okay to require people to sign up when they're ready to purchase. It just must be simple and it must be free. But the information that you show in Google Ads and that you show from Google Merchant Center has to be available to anybody. So if you're making parts for a machine and you're selling to businesses, When they see the ad here and they click, anybody needs to be able to see it. It's okay if they log in to buy it. Okay, I want to make sure I'm being very clear about that, right? And obviously, if you're selling to consumers, we don't want a situation where somebody sees this, they click over, and before they see the thing they clicked on, they get hit with a, you got to log in to see that. Google says, nope, no way, you're not going to be able to show up here. Okay, so it has to be secure, it has to be open access. The other thing is you have to use an HTTPS website. That's Hypertext Transport Protocol Secure, not HTTP. It requires something called an SSL certificate, or you might sometimes hear it referred to as a TLS certificate. Excuse me. These are just certificates that validate you are who you claim to be. You have to have one for your website to make sure that you can take customer data during checkout, and it's a really good idea from an SEO perspective to help you rank. Google ranks HTTPS sites above HTTP sites, and if you collect data at all and you don't have an HTTPS site, you probably won't rank at all. Be very aware of that. So you want this no matter what you do. These certificates come as part of what you pay for something like Shopify or BigCommerce, and we'll talk about those later. But if you're using a hosting platform like Shopify or BigCommerce, they actually do make the SSL certificate available to you as part of the fees you already pay. If you don't host on one of those services or another service that makes it available and you need to buy one because you have a self-hosted site, it's only a few $100s per year. So it's not a super large expense for your business. But without these, Google's going to say, nope, you're not secure, you're not open access, you don't get to play. Okay? Now, I said it's got to be secure, it's got to be simple, got to be honest, it's got to be protected. Another way that you are simple, honest, and protected is your prices match what's shown in the ads. This is something where people make mistakes a lot, and it's a place where you can seem dishonest, even if you're not. I'm not claiming you're being dishonest, but you'll note I see $178 for this dress. I click over, it's $178. I see $29.95. I click over, it's $29.95. This site right here, which is affordablecompressionsocks.com, by the way, you know, this is not some huge business. They're doing something really cool here from a merchandising perspective, where they're using what's called strike-through pricing. They're saying, hey, this is normally $70, but we're selling it to you for $29.95. That can encourage people to buy because they can think, oh my gosh, I'm getting a really good deal. But note, that same price was shown here in the shopping ad, the $29.95. If you came over and it was $69.99, but you can get it for $29.95 with a coupon that you may or may not have, you, the customer, may not have, that's not going to seem super honest. That's going to seem like a bait and switch, right? So you want to watch that. If you have things like shipping fees, and we're going to talk more about those in a moment, that are very expensive, or that are very complicated. If you have additional taxes, if you have additional fees, and it's not built into the price, it's going to look dishonest, and it's not going to inspire confidence in customers. It's not going to get them to trust you, and it's not going to get them to shop. So you want to make sure we're thinking about, are we being very clear at every step in the customer journey, what the customer is going to pay, so that they know that right up front. By the way, one other thing I want to show about these folks, I think this is really cool. I did a search for knee brace. Notice they're right here. Notice who's the #1 paid ad. Amazon. This is a small business selling things. It's literally called affordablecompressionsocks.com. That's all they do. And they are competing effectively with Amazon. And Amazon's paying for this spot. And affordablecompressionsocks.com appears above them in the search results. The customer sees this before they ever scroll down. That's a huge win. So don't think that you can't compete. You just have to do it in a way that is simple, that is honest, and that protects the customer. And if you do those things, you're going to be in really good shape. So your prices have to match what's shown on Google, or else Google's not going to show it. Another thing that you have to do, and this is another place where people can appear dishonest. And again, I'm not saying people are dishonest. I'm saying they can just appear dishonest, is you have to have at least 2 visible ways for people to contact you. You have to have an email address. You don't have to have all of these, but you have to have at least 2 of them. An email address, a phone number, a physical address if you have a storefront, or a mailing address. A contact form by itself does not count. People don't like those. They're not very trustworthy because we don't know who's really going to see them or if anybody's going to get back to me. Oh, but look, here's a furniture store. I've got a physical address. I've got a phone number for the store rather. I've got an 800 number if I want to call the central thing, and they've got the times. Like, it's really easy to know how to contact these people. Here's our affordablecompressionsocks.com site. They've got a phone number. They've got their physical mailing address for you. They make it really easy to say, how do we contact? Oh, and they've got an email address as well, support@acsock.com, or call us, or you can mail us right here at this address. Very simple. This, by the way, is an online only business. They don't have a physical space, but they still gave you a mailing address. And then over here, we've got restaurantstore.com, webstrantstore.com. I apologize, I said that wrong. Webstrantstore, this is web only. And notice again, they say, hey, we've got people available to help you 24 hours a day from Monday through Thursday, 12 p.m. to 8 on Friday, and from 9 a.m. to 4 on Saturday and Sunday. We can be reached by email, help@webstrantstore.com, live chat, or phone, and they have a link to the phone number in those cases. So again, this is a store that does not have a physical location. This is a store that doesn't have a physical location, but they're saying we've given you multiple ways for you to contact us. Now, why is that important? Well, especially if you're online only and the customer has a problem and they want to return the product, or they have questions about, hey, I bought this 2 weeks ago and it hasn't shipped yet. They need to know how to get in touch with you, and you have to give them an easy way to do it. If you don't, they're going to say, I'm going to find somebody else. Imagine if you went to a store you'd never heard of before to buy a product that you needed in your life, and there was no way to get in touch with the store that sold it to you. How comfortable would you feel giving them your credit card information? How comfortable would you feel giving them your home address to send it to? Probably not super comfortable. So we want to make sure we're giving people at least 2 ways to contact you that is clearly visible on the website. Speaking of returns or refunds, you need to have a refund and return policy and a terms of service in footer. So here's 2 different versions of this. This one is a site called The Next Chapter, New York City. They sell vintage clothing. And notice they got a refund policy and a terms of service right there in the footer. And this is a music store in Orlando, Florida, local place for me, right down the street. And notice they've got all kinds of information: shipping information, price protection, warranty, repairs, privacy notice, security notice, and return policy. Very straightforward. All of those available to the customer to answer the questions. These inspire trust, right? Because again, I want to know if I have a problem, what do I do? Okay, so just think about that from that perspective. You also have to be able to ship to supported countries. Any place that you say you support, you need to be able to ship to. It's okay if you only ship to the US. I realize most people on this webinar are in the US. I realize most people on this webinar are only in New Jersey. It's okay if you don't ship beyond the continental United States. It could be that you don't ship to Alaska and Hawaii, or you don't ship to Puerto Rico, or you don't ship to other Guam, for instance, other US territories, because shipping costs are too high or things like that. You just need to make sure you're being very clear about where you ship and make it easy for folks to understand. You also want to make sure you're selling in a currency that matches the supported country. So here, for instance, I'm shipping to the US. There's my shipping charges, and they're shown in US dollars. Here's, this is actually The Next Chapter, the vintage clothing store I mentioned before. Notice I'm buying this in Israel. I'm having this shipped to a place in Israel. It's the price is being shown in Israeli shekels, as are the shipping fees, right? So you want to make sure that you're showing in the currency of the customer and the shipping rates if you ship outside the United States, what those are. Because again, think about it. We're talking about trust. You get to the part of the process where somebody's going to buy, and the product you're selling them costs $50, and there's $500 shipping fees, but you don't tell them that up front. That's going to be a real problem for folks, right? So you want to make sure you're being very clear that they can find the various places you ship to, they can find the various costs for those shipping fees, and that they can get them shipped to the place where they are in the currency that they expect, and the shipping fees are in the currency they expect. Otherwise, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to shop, right? Obviously, if we're talking about taking people's money, we must have a valid payment provider. Now, there are lots of these out there. There's a ton, Authorize.net and Square and Stripe and Click2, and there's a ton. I'm going to be very candid about this. This is the area where my expertise breaks down at a certain point, because I get asked all the time, hey, what do you think of this one? Or what do you think of this one? There's dozens of these out there, and dozens of very, very good ones. I've worked with quite a few. I have by no means worked with all of them. Google supports a wide array of secure, trusted payment providers, and site builders like Shopify or BigCommerce or WooCommerce integrate with a large number of secure, trusted payment gateways. But the point is, you want to make it easy for people to buy, and you want to make it very clear that this is a trustworthy source, right? So we're seeing two different examples here. This is from our friends at AffordableCompressionSocks.com. By the way, I do know here they're using Stripe. I believe it is. This is either Stripe or PayPal. But not only do they give you the way to check out, but they have multiple different ways to pay that are express. So you can pay with ShopPay or PayPal or Venmo or MetaPay, so Facebook's payment, just with a single tap. One of the things that's great about this is a well-known truth of e-commerce, that the more ways you give people to pay, the higher your conversion rate is. Now, if you think about that for a second, it's actually really straightforward. There's a really clear reason why this is. Let's say that you want to buy from my store, and I only accept American Express. It's the only way I allow you to pay. I'm not picking on American Express. I'm just choosing them as an example. Okay. And you, the customer, don't have an American Express card. Guess what? You can't buy from me. I've made it impossible for you to buy, right? If I only accept Visa and you have an American Express card, but you don't have a Visa, you can't buy from me. If I only accept PayPal and you don't have a PayPal account, you can't buy from me. But if I accept American Express and Visa and Venmo and PayPal and MetaPay and Discover and all of these other ways for people to pay, suddenly there's more and more people who only have that one thing who can suddenly buy from you. And guess what? They're more likely to, because we know they won't when they can't. Right? We want to think about that in terms of being really clear about what kinds of payment options we do provide. The other thing that I like about both of these is not only do they accept multiple payment types, but they actually give you little icons that say, hey, look, we are trusted. We're verified by Visa. We are using MasterCard secure code. We're Norton protected. VeriSign has validated us. They're showing we take this seriously. These are valid payment providers, not some, hey, here's a form, give us your credit card. Let's see what happens. That's not going to inspire a lot of trust, and people are less likely to shop. Now, one of the things I want to point out is everything I just talked about is a requirement of Google's Merchant Center. So you have to have an open access store with no password protection for people to see your inventory. Your prices must match ads. You have to have 2 forms of visible contact information, and a contact form can't be one of them. You have to have a refund or return policy and a terms of service in your footer. You have to ship to any supported country, and you have to sell in the country that currency that matches that country's currency type. It's okay if it's only US, but if you ship to any place outside the US, you have to be able to show that you ship to that country and that you show the shipping fees and the prices in the currency of that country. If you shipped outside the US, you have to be able to show shipping rates in the currency of the country, and you have to use a valid payment provider. If you don't have any of these, you don't get to show up in Google price ads, period. That's all it is. So when we talk about how do you show up here, you do it by making sure you've done all of these things here. Plain and simple. Now, you might think, why does Google care about this? Why does Google care so much? And there's a couple of reasons, but I'm going to start with the simplest one. Google gets 5.6 billion, that's billion with a B, search queries every single day. That's about 65,000 searches every second. So I don't know, maybe it's me, but I think that Google might know what customers care about because they see it all the time. The number one place where people start to search anything is at Google. It's where they start their buyer's journey for all kinds of products and services. Now, a lot of people go to Amazon, and that's okay. That's the number two place. But they do tend to start at Google. Google knows what people ask for. The other thing that's wild about this is, you know where people go after they've gone to your website more often than any place else? Google, right? And one of the things Google sees a lot is a person does a search for a product, they come to your website, and then the person comes back and does a search for the same product. What that just told them is that your site didn't answer the question. Your site did not necessarily inspire confidence that you could answer their question, that you could give them what they wanted. And so they've done this for many, many, many billions of searches every single day and started to realize these are the things the customers care about. And that's why those are the requirements. And that's why your store has to have them. Your online store has to have them, even if you don't want to be in Google Merchant Center, because the same thing's going to be true. If you don't provide access to this, you're not going to inspire trust amongst your customers. And if you don't inspire customers, they're not going to shop. Now, you could just say, why don't we just use Google, or why don't we just use Amazon, or why don't we just use DoorDash, or why don't we just sell through Facebook Marketplace? Why don't we just use one of these guys as the place we do this? And you can, again, hub and spoke. There's nothing wrong with this, right? But you also have to remember, these folks are the gatekeepers. And there's one thing that's going to be true forever, which is gatekeepers gonna gate. You own a gate, you're going to use it. It's built in. We talk all the time about don't build your brand on rented land. If the only place people can buy your products is on Amazon, or the only place they can have them delivered is through DoorDash, or they can only get them on Facebook Marketplace, and then Amazon or DoorDash or Facebook Marketplace changes the rules, you've got a real problem, right? The single biggest rule they tend to change is they tend to increase tolls. They tend to charge more for the road to revenue. So it used to be we charge 2% for the sale or 1% for the sale, but boy, you're getting a lot of sales. We're going to jack that up and we're going to make even more money. Gatekeepers gonna gate. Keep that in mind. Don't build your brand on rented land. That doesn't mean you don't want to use them. Remember, we are talking about a hub and spoke model. There's nothing wrong with using the spokes. We just want to use them the right way so that we can grow our business in the long run. Now, I've been talking for a really long time. I'd love to answer some questions for you. What questions can I answer?
Awesome. Let's go ahead and read some out. For everyone else, please submit your questions in the Q&A. But we do have one from Mark. Hope you're doing well, Mark. One of our clients here.
Hey, Mark. Nice to see you.
Yeah. So he asks, do you recommend adding a cookie policy pop-up for businesses that sell only in the US and Canada?
This is a really interesting question. So you have probably seen this. Many of you have seen this on websites where you go to a website and you get a little pop-up that says, hey, here's our cookie policy because of GDPR, right? Is the primary reason why people have done this, because of Europe's general data privacy regulations. So the answer to this is complicated, Mark. I'd love to give you a simple answer to this. Europe, the European Union, is rethinking the GDPR right now. And they're rethinking the GDPR right now because every site in the world, and obviously that's not every site, but a large number of sites have put on these pop-ups that say, hey, here's our cookie policy. And it interferes with people doing anything before they get to the website. And so if you think about most customers, when I went to the website because there was something I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do had nothing to do with giving a rat's patootie about privacy policies or cookies, right? So what do people do? They get that privacy policy pop-up and they click the I accept to get it out of the way so that they can do the thing they actually want to do. And what the EU is discovering is that that's not actually solving the problem they want the law to pass. And so now they're talking about maybe we need to come up with a different mechanism. So I think you should have a very clear privacy policy. I think you should have a very clear cookie policy. I think those should be easily found by your customers, probably in the footer, because it's where they tend to be on most sites and we want to do things the way most people do them, unless we have a better usability reason not to. But would I actually have a pop-up to say, hey, this is our cookie policy if my customers are only in the US or in Canada? I probably wouldn't. I do want to say one last thing before I finish this answer, which is I am not an attorney. You want to make sure that you are consulting with qualified and competent legal counsel to make sure that that you are complying with CPRA, which is the California Privacy Regulation Act, or any of Canada's laws. Canada has a couple of privacy laws on the books, and they've got one that's going through their parliament right now that you want to take a look at, that you want an attorney to take a look at, to make sure that there is nothing that you do need to do because of the size of your business or specific industries you're in or specific customers you sell to or the like, that you're not violating some other law that does require it. But as long as there's no law that says you should do it, I think they're kind of a waste of time for customers and get in the way of what they actually want to do. So I would tend to say you don't want one.
Absolutely. All right, let's see what other questions we have. I have a question inside of the chat that I found.
Yeah.
It says, what did Tim say about affordable.com?
Affordablecompressionsocks.com. I said a bunch about them. Was there a specific thing you were curious? I know one of the things I said that impressed me about them, I don't know if this is what you were referring to in the question, but one of the things that impressed me, and I'm going to show the slide again, is that notice they're appearing here in Google ads, Google shopping ads. This comes from Merchant Center. This is coming from a feed into Merchant Center from whatever e-commerce platform that they are using. And I don't know what their e-commerce platform is, so I can't say with confidence. But one of the reasons why this is a good thing for their business, and a similar thing would be good for your business, is the shopping ads show at the top of the screen, and then paid ads show at below those. People have to scroll down to get to the paid ads. All of this is before you get to organic search results, right? But the top paid ad here is Amazon. So here is organic compression shop, affordablecompressionsocks.com, who is a small business in Tempe, Arizona, and they are showing up above Amazon in Google search results for this specific product. When I searched for knee brace, right? That's a really cool thing if that's what you sell for a living, that you get a chance to beat Amazon to the top of the results. That's super cool. So that's one of the reasons why, in this case, we do want to partner with a spoke, and it's okay to partner with folks who are gatekeepers. We're not using them for all our business. Notice, You can buy here on Affordable Compression Socks. They're sending people to your website, but you're making both available, right? So that's a thing that I said about them, and something that I thought was really cool that they're doing.
Awesome, awesome. Judy asks, will you be doing this for service businesses?
Great question. So everything I talked about today also applies to service businesses. My career has been heavily in service industries. I've worked in hospitality, I've worked in travel, I've worked in financial services. I am a consultant on the service business myself. Obviously, the only parts that don't apply to service business is the part where you put it in the cart and get it shipped to you, right? Because as a service business, there is no shipping. So you can ignore all of that. There is no Google shopping ads for service businesses. There are hotel price ads, which does require that your property management system or central reservation system has a connection to Google, much like Merchant Center. It's a separate platform, but it works kind of the same. There has to be a connection between your database and Google so that your inventory is available to show up in the ads, because they want to know, hey, do you have availability on the date a guest is looking for, things like that. But otherwise, all the rest of it in terms of have a good privacy policy, make your policies clear, make sure your inventory is available publicly, make sure your prices match what's in the ads. All of those are exactly the same. All of those inspire trust, the same. So every other webinar we've done has been generic, that it hasn't been about products or services. But all of the things we're talking about here are still true when you talk about a service business. Just one slight nuance is you don't have to worry about some of the things related to shipping because there's no shipping.
All right, so it looks like we don't have any more questions.
All right, fantastic. But I'm just gonna wrap us up, and then I'll kick it back to you with a minute or two to spare.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Christian. Okay, so as a reminder, keep in mind the web presence. Think hub and spoke. How are we using this hub, and how are we using the spokes to connect those two things? Remember, customers only have a couple of questions. One is, am I going to be satisfied when using your product or service? And two, why should I buy from you? What they're really asking is, should I trust you? And when they trust you, they're going to shop. They keep it simple, keep it honest, keep it protected. That's really important. Keep in mind Google's Merchant Center requirements, which again, you can find in the links that will be in the slides, or just search for Google Merchant Center. Be aware that if you don't have a website today, if you don't have an e-commerce website, there's a bunch of good options out there. BigCommerce, Shopify.com. They're great if you require an online shopping cart. They're relatively low cost. They're relatively simple to set up, and they can scale as you grow. They can support your business as your business gets bigger and bigger. I want to remind you that we are living in a world where we're going through a generational shift to digital, and you can get your share even when you're competing against gatekeepers like what I call the Ag Fam: Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. You can do it. We saw it with our friends AffordableCompressionSocks.com. We saw it with Dress Shop. We saw it with our the vintage shoe store. These are all companies who are just like you, who are competing successfully with the Ag Fam and with the gatekeepers. If you do these things well, if you build confidence with your customers, if you take care of them and answer their questions, I feel really comfortable you're going to get your fair share. And I would say, when in doubt, trust me. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Christian to take us home. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. Again, wonderful presentation. And for next week, everyone, same day, same time, Thursday, 12 p.m. Tim is going to join us for, I believe this might be the last one. I'm sorry if it's not, might be next week. But we're sort of going through a series. And this one's going to be basics of email marketing for small business. Now, this one's my favorite. Email is very underrated when it comes to doing marketing online. It's literally a business asset for you. So it's important to get more email subscribers, email them. And yeah, so go ahead and scan the QR code. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to do that so you can register for this event next week. All right. Well, that's all, folks, for today. We are the NJSBDC. We've helped 15,000 plus small businesses grow. No cost business consulting, training and events starting at $0, exclusive resources. If you aren't registered yet, go ahead and get started at njsbdc.com/request-counseling. You can go ahead and scan the QR code there. It'll bring up all of our fun links. I'll keep that up for a second. And once I close this out, you're going to get redirected to that survey, remember, and then you could get access to the slideshow that our presenter had. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.